What is going on, everybody? We are 1 week away from kicking off the NFL season, and with that brings season 3 of Turf Talk back in action here on DSM Media's Turf Talk YouTube channel. If you guys are new to the channel, if you're going to watch each and every one of our breakdowns, we're starting today with the NFC and AFC North divisions.
Sure.
Make sure to tap in. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can catch us every Thursday and every Sunday live during the season. But for right now, we are pre-recording these breakdowns. I'm one half of your host, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty, doing things a little differently here to kick off season 3, man. I think it'll make it a lot more fun, a lot more intriguing for the viewers and for us as well. Within today's show, like I said, as you can see on the bottom of your screen, the AFC and NFC North division breakdowns are coming your way. We're going to do things a little differently, try to spice it up, try to have some more fun with it. And within each of these divisional breakdowns that we're going to do every day, starting today and into next week before the season starts, we're going to be giving you our top 10 positional rankings heading into the 2024 season between our quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends. Each week, each show, doing these breakdowns, we're going to reveal which players from these two divisions have made our top 10 lists, where they're slotted, and we'll keep the others checked off, boxed off until we get to those divisions, man. So new setup, but same old show, brother. And football is back. Actually, college football starts tonight. I could not be more excited for this time of year.
Yeah, and this weekend's going to be jam-packed, obviously. Labor Day weekend should be fun as well. But, yeah, the NFL's back, man. Obviously, my favorite time of the year. I believe it's yours as well. We're heading into playoff baseball soon as well. We'll get the NBA back. And that's when things get pristine, when we have all three of those things going full speed. So I'm excited to get into it, man. It's the first I've really I know me and you specifically. I know we've talked Eagles, but NFL, this is the first we're getting into it outside of like fantasy football and some of the drafts and some of the research I've done there. So doing research per team or per division was a little bit different, I would say, coming into this as well. Not necessarily focusing on individual players, right? Like fantasy football, but
correct.
Focusing on entire teams and from every aspect that comes with the team, head coach, offense, defense, special teams, so on and so forth. So should be fun. These two divisions are pretty tight. The AFC North a little bit tighter than the NFC, but still some debate to be had, I guess, between the two. It should be fun, man. I'm excited to get into these, man. But like you said, a week out from football season officially starting for the NFL specifically.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't wait to get into the bets, all of it, man. I'm excited.
Man. One of those teams we're going to be breaking down, actually two of those teams next Thursday and Friday kick off the season. The Baltimore Ravens, representing the AFC North, take on the Chiefs at Arrowhead next Thursday night. Yeah. And then you have our Eagles taking on the NFC North Green Bay Packers in Brazil next Friday. So
burning down right now.
Yeah, literally. It's going to be very interesting.
It's not funny. It's just weird that they're playing a game in Brazil where there's wildfires. But
right. It's just like one of those, of course, kind of things with everything else going on. And AJ Brown was talking today about they had a long meeting of the don't do's while you're in Brazil, while they're there. And so just get through it. And as an Eagles fan, just get us back home, man. Just get us back to the link in one piece, and let's continue to kick off our season there. But like you said, these two divisions, I'm glad we started with these two, because I think you have one in the AFC, pound for pound. For my money, it's the best division in football. I think it comes with some of the best rivalries in football. Every single game, whether it's a Thursday night game, a Sunday night game, whatever time of day on Sunday, they're hard-nosed, gritty, fun, exciting games. They're superstars all across the board in on each of these teams in this division. So the AFC North is absolutely loaded. I think it's the best division in football. And then you get to the NFC North, which, let's just be honest, Scotty, our first year, like I said, this is season 3. Season 1, the NFC North probably wasn't too fun to talk about. If we went back and watched those shows, I mean, what was that Rodgers last year in Green Bay? Probably. They were a train wreck. Yeah. The Lions weren't good yet. Obviously, they made the NFC Championship game last year. They weren't there. The Bears were still in disarray. So
Vikings
Vikings were honestly kind of the top of that division at the time.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins and Jay Jett.
So it brings a
Dalvin
lot of
Cook at the
intrigue to
top.
discuss that division now too. When you bring in a Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze with the Bears, when you talk about the Lions trying to get back and maybe get over the hump and get to a Super Bowl with that offense.
Yeah.
You talk about all the Jordan Love hype, the MVP, kind of expectations the media and other people are setting for him in this Packers team. There's a lot to get into, man. Where do you want to start? You want to start NFC? You want to start AFC? We can bounce back and forth. Doesn't really matter. We'll change up the setup here on the show this year.
Let's start NFC. Let's start NFC just because, like you said, the AFC is kind of the better division of the two. So let's start with the weaker division, I guess you could say. We'll get to the good stuff a little later.
Let's start NFC North. And I guess the first question I want to ask you is which of these teams, I don't want to say has the highest ceiling. I think we would be in agreement that the Detroit Lions, obviously, like I said, making that championship game last year, had the high, on paper would have the highest ceiling, the highest expectations to try to go win a Super Bowl. But which one of these teams, let's say, has the best ability to reach whatever their ceiling is this year? And what I mean by that, you have the Lions who are Super Bowl aspirations. Like they are trying to be a Final Four team in the National Football League and get over that hump. You have the Green Bay Packers who won a playoff game last year on the road. A lot of Jordan Love expectations. Can they win the division? Can they make a run the postseason? You have a young Bears team. Is their expectation, is their ceiling to make the playoffs, Scotty? Like, will they get it? Will they get there? Will they win 9-10 games this year with Caleb Williams? Which of the three teams, disrespect to the Vikings, but we'll shove aside Minnesota for now.
You don't got anything for the Vikes?
No. Which of those three teams has the best chance to reach whatever their ceiling is this year?
It's a good question. The Bears, it's interesting. Like you said, that's a young team. Caleb Williams, he's a rookie quarterback, but he looks great already with that offense. Ton of weapons in there in Chicago. Probably the best they've had in quite a while. DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, like you said, the rookie wide receiver as well. So they're interesting, but we really don't know what their ceiling is, quite honestly. Their ceiling could be, like you said, 9 wins, 8-9 wins. Maybe, fight for that last wild card spot in the NFC. But it could also be 4 or 5 wins and not fighting for any type of playoff spot. Maybe 2 of their wins are against their division opponent, Vikings, and then they struggle against the rest of the league. There's a chance that could happen. I think they could be somewhere in the middle there. 6 through 8 wins sounds about right for where they're at. And that would be a great development year, I think, for them. Getting Caleb Williams in there and getting anything over really like 6-7 wins, I think is a successful season for him. So I guess from that standpoint, I would go with either the Bears or the Packers. The Packers are on a little bit of a different scale. I think some people out there think they're going to sneak out from behind the Lions and win the division and really contest them, right? And maybe they are looked at as an NFC championship caliber type of roster, given that Jordan Love was able to get a playoff win in his first playoff experience. But I don't know. My expectation for the Packers is a little bit lower than that, I guess. I think them making it to the postseason, in a sense, would be successful. I guess you would have to say they need, in order to be successful, they need to get further than what they got the last time. So I guess a playoff win. But then that's where it gets a little foggy for me. I don't know. I'm not super high on the Green Bay Packers like I feel like a lot of people are this year. I get the Jordan Love. Like I get the love for the guy. No pun intended there. I get the love to an extent, is what I should say. I thought he played really well last year. He had like 32 passing touchdowns. Mediocre wide receivers when you compare it to other weapons around the league. So I really liked what Jordan Love did last year. But I'm not convinced that they're this like world beater in the NFC, like some out there.
He's borderline an MVP favorite at the moment, Scotty.
Yeah, that's taking it too far. So maybe to that point, I would go with the Bears reaching their expectations, because if that's the expectation that he's going to compete for MVP and that they're going to be a juggernaut in the NFC, then no, I'm not there. So yeah, and with the Lions, I kind of feel the same way. They're more of the Super Bowl contender. I just watched Get Up. I saw Damian Woody, I believe, picked them, and Harry Douglas picked them. Both picked them to go to the Super Bowl. I think Harry Douglas picked them to win the Super Bowl. It's just not that easy. I get that they're kind of a fun pick this year because they haven't done it right, and they got super close last year. It's ready for them to take that step. But there's also the other side of things where maybe a little bit of their offense got figured out. Maybe a little bit of their defense got figured out. Maybe there was a whole offseason to look at what they were doing last year. Look at what happened to the Eagles. I mean, like we can use our firsthand experience for that. And same could be said for the Packers even. It's that first year with Jordan Love out there really commanding the offense, really feeling confident in his role. Are there some things shown over the offseason that get figured out with these offenses? Obviously, each and every year you got to work on improving, adding new little niches to the scheme. But I don't know. I guess in the NFC, I would put the Lions in like top 3 contenders in the NFC. Do I think it's going to be super easy for them to hit their ceiling? No, I don't. So I think I would go with the Bears to answer your question specifically.
I tend to agree when it comes to reaching whatever it is that that team's specific goal is this year. A few things, right? Yeah. I'll start with Green Bay, who I'm the least high on, right? Do I think Green Bay right now is a better team than Chicago? Yeah, there's a lot of unknown, like you spoke about, that comes with a rookie quarterback, a rookie stud receiver to go with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. They've had coaching and offense coordinator and quarterback coach issues in the past. So the Bears do have a lot. They had the most to figure out, right? Whereas the Packers went to Dallas. We know what they did against the Cowboys and Jerry World last year. Jordan Love, like you said, over 32 touchdowns, over 4,000 yards, had a hell of a second half of the season and a great playoff game or two under his belt. I'm just not all that sold on the team overall, Scotty. And if you want to talk about a team possibly being figured out throughout the offseason and tape officially being out there, out of the two teams between the Lions and the Packers, I lean the Packers a lot more there because they're just not talented enough, right? Like Matt LaFleur, we know, is a young, great offensive mind in this league. And he had Aaron Rodgers to kickstart his career. They draft Jordan Love. Rodgers leaves. Love steps in. And we know, like we said, what he did last year. They brought in Josh Jacobs. A.J. Dillon is going to miss the year. They lose Aaron Jones, who's been a big part of what they do. And then you're going to throw Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, and Luke Musgrave my way. And I'm going to tell you right then and there, that is the least talented group of the 3 teams. The Bears have more talent on offense than the Packers do. The Lions borderline blow them out of the fucking water. Okay.
So, you said those 3 teams, not the Vikings. The Vikings are excluded.
The Vikings, Sam Darnold, brush them aside. But of those 3 teams we're discussing right now, the Packers have the least talent. And I think Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love did a great job last year. But like you said, when you're talking about tape being out potentially, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but that is a team I would point to and go, they're not talented enough to overcome all the adjustments they might see this year, right?
I think that's fair.
Jacobs, is he anything like he was 2 years ago when he was the rushing champ? Or did he slow down like he looked like last year, even though the Raiders were an absolute dumpster fire? We don't know. So it's going to be very interesting to see from a Packers perspective exactly what they can do offensively. Because like I said, man, I know you read those names. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. They don't even compete. Like with the Bears receiving core, with the Lions, like they don't compete, right? So Jordan Love's going to have to play. Put it this way. If the Packers exceed what I'm talking about, if the Packers exceed my expectations, then Jordan Love might have to be in the MVP conversation because he's taken a group of mediocre talent and propelling them to either a division title or a playoff win or whatever it may be. So that's the Packers. You talked about the Bears. I'm not saying you're selling them short, but the win total, I think, has to be higher than you stated for them to have a successful year. Their total on DraftKings is 9.5. Now, is that too high? Yeah, that might be too high. But I think a reason to me they have to win 8 games for this to be a
so 10 games, 10 wins.
Yeah.
Like that it might not. Detroit could eclipse it. Who knows with Green Bay? But 10 could win you the division.
It's going to put you in a spot, right? 11 definitely puts you in a spot. But I think
absolutely.
The basement for Chicago to have a successful year is 8 and 9. That is the absolute basement. I think they go much above it to reach their ceiling. No, I think their ceiling's 9 and 8, possibly that 10 and 7 mark. I haven't looked at their schedule in depth, but that's where they have to get to have that year. If they finish 6 and 11 or 7 and 10, that is not a successful season for a team that's already been struggling and went out and got their guy, got their franchise cornerstone in Caleb Williams, etc. The Lions, I know I'm rambling here, but the point about the Lions, Scotty, is this. I don't view them as a true Super Bowl threat. I don't like when I think of who's going to represent the NFC, or maybe they could represent the NFC, but if they got there, I don't think they win the big game. Like I don't see them as a true threat to raise the Lombardi at the end of the year. But I will throw out there, if not now, when for the Detroit Lions. And I don't mean because of their youth. I'm not talking about a window for them. I'm talking about the outside looking in. You have the San Francisco 49ers team that is getting a little bit older, that has issues with Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk right now. They had, Brock, like they have things to figure out. They're going to have to spread some money around. They're losing guys to age, right? So the Niners are in a little bit of a weird spot right now. The Eagles, I think they're going to be great. Coming off of the season last year, some, rumors swirling, articles being written this offseason.
Yeah.
That leaves we don't really know what the Eagles are right now. That leaves a window for Detroit this year specifically to slip in and be that best team in the NFC. I just don't personally view them that way. I don't think they play nearly good enough defense, Scotty. Like nearly good enough on the defensive side of the ball. How many games last year would the Lions win? Like Seattle, I remember they played early on in the year against Geno, and it was like 38-36 or something crazy like that. Like,
they gave up a lot of points.
They don't play good enough defense for me to take them seriously as a Super Bowl contender, and I just don't view Jared Goff as a guy. I know they get in a lot of shootouts, but in the bigger moments, if Jared Goff has to get in a shootout versus Jalen Hurts, if Jared Goff has to get in a shootout versus Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson I don't think that Lions offense is going to be good enough to get that job done on that day. So weird spot, man.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with you when you talk about the Lions. I was actually just looking and reviewing the Bears' schedule here, and yeah, I mean, there's probably 5 games that I would say they would definitely lose. Like I would put mark as L's for them. The Texans in week 2, the Rams in week 4. Then you go all the way down. Then it comes down to like the Packers and Lions. I think they're going to lose one of those games against those teams. Like I think that they will split at best with like the Lions and the Packers. So I just added 2 there, that they lose one of 2 games against each of those teams. So what? That would be 4 games, and then the 49ers they have as well, which I marked as a loss there. Yeah, on the road as well. So 5 games total that you could mark and say, they're most likely going to lose those games. So yeah, that you may be right. Maybe things are looking up. I guess I'm just not putting super expectations on a rookie quarterback,
1,000%.
He is one of the best in a long time.
That is the other side of it, right? Like I agree with you. It's very difficult to see a team to bring a rookie in and to have these lofty expectations that he needs to take you where they want to be and maybe get to the playoffs or whatever. But I mean, we're talking special, man. Like we're supposed to be talking special, and he's loaded. He's absolutely loaded. And I disagree with everybody that this whole all season, they go out, they get Keenan Allen, they bring in DeAndre Swift, they draft Rome Odunze top 10, and people are like, oh, if only they invested in the Justin Fields like they. Justin Fields is not the quarterback Caleb Williams is or is going to be. Yeah, Caleb Williams' ceiling's up here. Justin Fields' ceiling is somewhere down here. Terrific guy. He didn't even beat out Russell Wilson for the job, guys. All right, that's the other side of that's the
we got to talk about that.
But I mean, seriously. So I think they invested in their rookie. They put a lot of options around them. They've already been kind of a sneaky, talented defense. Like they're a tough defense. Especially in Chicago. So yeah, man, I think the overall question, I think Chicago is the team to kind of reach whatever it is their goal is this year, whatever their ceiling is supposed to be. They're the team that can do it
What about from a defensive standpoint? Like, who do you think is hoisting the best defense in the division? Because I immediately go to the Packers. I think just their pass rush. They got some good linebackers there. They got good star secondary players as well. But the Lions did try to go out, add some talent to their unit last offseason. They did lose CGJ, but went out and added Carlton Davis, DJ Reader, Marcus Davenport. So tried to stiffen up their front lines, become a little bit more physical, it seems like to me, to maybe not give up those 35 plus point games like they did last year, to have those shootouts. So it is between the Lions and Green Bay for me, but you do bring up a good point. Chicago is always sneaky good. It gets really cold there. I don't know. I do go with Green Bay.
I think it has to be Green Bay defensively. I think.
And how much stock does that hold for you for their success and where they can go? I guess it would be my next question for you.
Again, man, I mean, they are a weird team. I'm not as sold on them, and I'm not as sold on Jordan Love as a lot of people are. But I will say, if you have if you have a good defense, if you have a top 10-ish type of defense for the Packers, and Jordan Love is balling out, they're a very good team. Like they will be a very good team.
Yeah,
I'm not concerned about their defense. I think offensively I don't want to say the word struggle because I think he is good enough to put up major numbers. But I'm sorry, man. I hate their roster offensively. I'm disgusted by it. It is a disgusting looking offense. I don't care. So
I do feel you. I honestly
I really don't know how much that balances it out. I think Detroit's still better. And that's another thing, man. Like, I'm always looking for teams that are kind of right on that bubble that maybe made the playoffs last year or whatever, or coming off a down year like the Eagles. What do you do to make yourselves better? And we know the offseason the Eagles have had, and we see other teams we see that what the Texans went out and did this offseason, right? And the Ravens go out and add Derrick Henry next to Lamar Jackson and a lot of things. What the fuck did the Green Bay Packers do this offseason? Seriously. They spend Josh Jacobs. You added Josh Jacobs, but you lost Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I mean, obviously A.J. Dillon isn't their fault, but you those two are gone for the year, and you bring in Josh Jacobs. That's what you do offensively, at least. I don't know. I don't believe they made any big adjustments on the defensive side of the ball.
Xavier McKinney, the safety.
Yeah. That's right. So that's a great pickup to that side of the ball as well.
For the defense, though. Yeah.
Right.
They're a good defense, but. Right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm with you though. It sounds like you're taking the Lions to win the division, and that's kind of where I'm at as well. I get the fun in the Packers pick. I think that they can win the division, and like you said, if the defense is balling out, if Jordan Love comes out and can play at the same level he did towards the end of last season, all season, yeah, they can win the division and maybe beat out the Lions. I think division winner around 11 wins on the season.
I think the Lions win. I think without a doubt the Vikings are one of the worst teams in the league and come in fourth. And then I'm going to knock your cap off here. I think the Chicago Bears come in second and try to make a wild card towards the end of the year. And the Green Bay Packers do not make the playoffs. So
interesting.
I'll carry my hate a step further, or my distaste for that offense a step further. The Packers do not make the playoffs and come in third in the NFC North this year. Wanted a hot take, guys? There you go.
There he is. It's not necessarily riding the Bears, but definitely riding against the Packers in that
riding against the Packers, and I'm like, as a football fan, man, if the Eagles aren't on, obviously red zone's king. But if I have opportunities to watch the Bears offense, I want as many. I think they're going to be really exciting, man. Like again, they're not to the level of what the Eagles have on paper and talent-wise, but you know how, like, we just keep reiterating to ourselves how fun it's going to look. Like, can you imagine if AJ's covered, Smitty's open. If Smitty's covered, you have Saquon. If Saquon's covered, you've got, like, for me, you give the number one overall pick one of the best route runners. I don't care, like, age, injuries, I get that. But if we're talking health, you give him one of the best route runners and veteran receivers in Keenan Allen. You just paid DJ Moore, who was your big ticket get last year. You have a guy in Cole Kmet at tight end. You draft Rome Odunze, who's balling out in preseason and training camp and looking like a top 10 pick. Go out, you get it. Like, I think they're going to be a really explosive type of offense.
You know what? The one thing that is, like, really holding me back, outside of Caleb Williams being a rookie, outside of them being like a first-year offense that's, just together this year. They haven't played a lot together. But aside from all of that, it is the explosiveness of the offense and how cold it gets in Chicago, man. They're not playing in a dome. And I do get Green Bay's just as cold, if not colder, right? Minnesota, same thing. Minnesota plays in a dome. Detroit plays in a dome. Chicago plays outside, and I just don't know if they have the physical identity. We're talking about approaching playoffs, though. To that point, it's going to get cold in November, December. It's when it gets really cold there.
And you got the Southern
Chicago is different, man. Too. It's like, it breaks you. It'll break you, man.
And that number one pick is a Southern Cowboy, too. So it's like he doesn't like
Keenan Allen coming from LA.
I get it.
Swift, who's more of like the elusive type of back. He's not that bruiser back. And I do think Josh Jacobs, like, in the cold, is a benefactor compared to Aaron Jones. Ran the ball good. Don't get me wrong. He's a physical runner as well, but to your point, Josh Jacobs, I do get your point earlier as well. Josh Jacobs could take a turn for the worse for all we know.
Listen, man, it's a good point. It's styles make fights, and how does the Bears want to play translate to late November and December? And
they need to build a dome for Caleb. They need to build a dome for Caleb. I know they're looking into a new stadium, a new dome in Chicago. They need to get that done for that kid, man. Let him play inside, and then you can have the high-flying offense. Yeah. I don't feel the exact same way about the Eagles because I know that they can get physical in a sense, but there is a sense of that, when you're trying to air it out at home in the cold, it's just a little bit different. Yeah. Throwing that football, man. We see it with Tua when he has to go into those cold places, the Dolphins. It's just something to watch out for. It doesn't mean that I don't want it to seem like I'm calling them soft. I'm not calling them soft. I think anybody that goes into that cold, it's a different animal, but they're going to be playing home games in it. And that, I don't know. I guess we would have to look into home games do they have during that time of year, so on and so forth. But I do agree with you. I think ceiling-wise, it is exciting, especially when you think about what Chicago's been hoisting up back there for the last couple of years. Justin Fields, I get it. Like I'm not going to say we because you were never super fond of Justin Fields. I wasn't high on Justin Fields. I just thought he was fun because of his legs. Yeah. But even that started to wear down last year with that Chicago offense. Yeah. Like you said, couldn't win the job in Pittsburgh. So it will be fun to see that star quarterback and to see them in Chicago because it's just not something we see very often. It doesn't feel like they ever get that golden guy.
And the division needed it from an outsider's perspective, man. And even if JJ McCarthy didn't get hurt, the Vikings were not going to be a very good team. Like, I don't even know if would he have won the job. We don't.
He was a star at camp, man.
Yeah. So you have the Vikings who are injured and are just in a bad way right now. We don't know what the Packers are. Like, if the Bears did not have Caleb Williams, or if they drafted Caleb Williams but really didn't do much in the offseason, right? Like, they didn't draft Rome Odunze as well. Allen. They didn't get Keenan Allen. It was Caleb Williams and DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. And then again, I think you're looking at the Lions 1,000% winning 12, 13 games and running away with this division. But they bring intrigue to it, and the Packers are bringing some more intrigue to it, and it's a division that needed it. So from when you're sitting on your couch and it's week 15, week 16, and you're looking at playoff at standings and who needs to win, then you're going to get a big time Lions Packers or Bears Packers game later on in the season, and those are always fun to watch, man. But let's transition on over to the AFC side of things, the best division in football. That is the AFC North with the Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Browns.
Yes, sir.
I'm having trouble reading this division this offseason, man. I am.
Me too, man.
Last year when we did our overall playoff, predictions and our seedings, I believe we both had. I know I had the Ravens winning that division and being the number 1 overall seed, which they ended up doing. But you still have question marks about Lamar Jackson and company getting the job done when it comes to later on in the playoffs and winning the big games. You have a team, the Cincinnati Bengals, who just a few years ago was in that big game. Since then, they've dealt with injuries. Joe Burrow's dealt with injuries. Jamar Chase wants to get paid. He's not practicing right now. They lose Tyler Boyd. They lose Joe Mixon. They bring in Zach Moss. So there's a lot of change right now in Cincinnati for a team that has a top 3 quarterback and a top 5 wide receiver that always intrigues you as well. You're the Steelers. We know what their defense is. They haven't had a quarterback. They go out and they get 2. The problem with having 2 quarterbacks, Scotty, is if you have 2, you don't have 1. And that's, I think, what the Steelers are struggling with right now. And then you have the Browns. The Browns are by far, I don't want to say sneaky because I think people still recognize how good they are. They are a great defensive team. Nick Chubb, I know, is starting on the PUP list. Can't play the first 4 weeks, but we're expecting him to play at some point in October or November for them. The question mark, Scotty, quarterback. What is Deshaun Watson at this point?
Yeah. Can he just be a game manager?
I can't get a read on what I like in this division, man.
Yeah, no, I kind of feel you. And I don't know if some of the things that I'm going to say about this division or how I think things are going to play out, I don't know if those are hot takes per se, because I do feel like any one of these teams could win the division potentially, right? Like, you mentioned it with the Browns. I think they are just very sneaky. A lot of their situation entangles with health. Can they stay healthy? Can they get Nick Chubb back? And can he stay healthy? But Deshaun Watson, man, we've seen him in the NFL be a star. He's not that old. Like, he's not that washed and old, right? He's had a full season to get intertwined with this Browns organization, this offense. Now has had an entire offseason to stay in shape for the NFL, coming back off that suspension. So there is a little bit of potential there to be unlocked with Deshaun Watson, even at his age, at this stage in his career. Because I do think if he's serviceable, if he's a game manager, the Browns are probably a playoff team, quite honestly.
Without a doubt. I don't even think that's a question.
Yeah. And if he plays at an above average to good to great level, sky's the limit. They could win the Super Bowl with that defense. Like, they could.
I don't think that Houston Texan Deshaun Watson's still in there.
Right.
If he's even this far off from that,
can he be top 15?
AFC championship contender.
Can he be top 15 in the NFL?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the question with them. Pittsburgh, it is interesting, man, because Russell Wilson, it's like, man, he doesn't deserve any more, like,
I know, man,
glimmers of hope for him. But this team, they do have Mike Tomlin, great coach.
It's been the only thing they've needed.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, can Russell Wilson put his ego aside and just be a game manager? And that's going to be the big question for him. You already have Mike Tomlin talking about mixing in some of the mobility with Justin Fields. I just don't like that idea. Like, especially if you're going to take
me like Carson Wentz, Jalen.
Yeah. I don't like the idea
behind Russ the whole time.
If you're going to take Russ off the field and bring Justin Fields on, that's weird. There's no rhythm to be built there. And then Cincy, man, you mentioned all the turnover there. But they also have wide receiver issues with these guys just wanting to simply be paid. Jamar Chase, more specifically, him holding out of practice, still at practice, but not suiting up. Just a lot of wide receiver drama all around the NFL, to be said. But the Bengals dealing with a good brunt of it. And then the Ravens, man, it's kind of like they keep coasting, but they are coming off of heartbreak.
Yeah.
Like, that was heartbreaking to lose in that fashion. Against that Chiefs team. So,
and like you said, man, it's not easy to get there. Like, when we were talking about the Lions, it's not
easy to get over it.
Eagles fans, and we just assume they're going to be back in the conversation. Well, they play in the toughest division in football. So, some teams you look on paper and go, well, there's 2 wins, right? Like when you talk about like the Giants or the Vikings or the Panthers in the South, like, oh, there's 2 wins. There is not a single guaranteed win within the 6 games you're going to play in your division.
Yeah.
Okay. They lost pieces on defense. You lose a Patrick Queen, that hurts. Okay. Now I love the Derrick Henry addition. But they
Patrick
still
Queen
have
goes
issues.
to Pittsburgh, by the way.
Right. They yeah, that's true. They still have issues in the wide receiver room. And the guy that went out last year and got an OBJ hurt right now. So who knows at this point of his career if he can come back and even contribute. So the Ravens, especially in a not just a stacked division, in a stacked conference in the AFC, it is not a given that Lamar Jackson, the 2-time MVP, is just going to be think about that too, Scotty. He played MVP level football last year.
Yeah.
Are we is he going to play MVP level football again this year?
Is he going to stay healthy for the whole season?
When it comes to Baltimore. Questions. When you talk about Pittsburgh, like you just said, Patrick Queen goes to them defensively. I mean, there's an argument to be made there that they can be the best defense in football. Like they can be top 3, they can be top 5, they can be in that range. If TJ Watt stays healthy, we know they win football games even without a quarterback. But that's been the one thing they've lacked. Now they go out this year, they get a Russell Wilson, they take him off of Denver's hands, they trade for Justin Fields. And in theory, that sounds good because, hey, if one of them could just work out, that's the missing piece.
Yeah.
Like I said, man, if you have 2 in this league, you don't have 1. And the fact that neither of them could really win over the job is a problem. Like Justin Fields turning the ball over. I watched their first preseason game. He fumbled the snap twice on the first drive. We know Russell Wilson's had his issues. He didn't take over in camp and just win this job outright. So he's had issues. And the thing for me where Pittsburgh is going ass backwards, and I get it, Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren behind that line, great defense, run the football. If Russ can be a game manager, maybe they can win a double-digit ball games. But you finally go out and try to address the quarterback position finally, and you move on from Deontay Johnson, which I'm not saying that's the biggest loss in the world, and you add nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You added Van Jefferson. So now the Steelers, George Pickens is now a wide receiver 1. Is George Pickens mature enough?
Right.
From everything you've seen.
He's very good. He's very talented.
He's talented. But can he be a leader? Can he be a number 1 wide receiver on a playoff type of team? And then beyond that, man, I mean, are you kidding? Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin still playing football? They just cut Quez Watkins. That's how bad Quez Watkins had to be.
Yeah, right. You list those names and Quez
dude
could not make it. That is so interesting.
You go out and you address the one hole you've had in quarterback to try to make the playoffs and do some damage, and then you kind of limit the options said quarterback could have on the field. Like, man, if Justin Fields does get to start by let's say week 4 or 5, Scotty, because Russ just isn't cooking. If I'm I'm not a Justin Fields fan. I don't believe he's got the the arm talent to win a Super Bowl or take you anywhere. But if I'm him, and I went from the Bears, who never helped me really, see what they did the second I move, they trade me, and now I come to this team and they've gotten worse on paper offensively. I'd be like, dude, can I get a little bit of help? So the Steelers are in a very odd spot. The Bengals, I agree with you, man. I think they're in an interesting spot as well. I think they have Super Bowl aspirations. They are quote unquote Super Bowl contenders in the AFC. You lose Joe Mixon, you replace him with Zach Moss. It's a downgrade for my money. Like that, you downgraded the running back position.
Yeah.
Can Joe stay healthy? Jamar wants his money. T had money issues before. You move on from Tyler Boyd. He goes to Tennessee.
Yeah,
now Andre Iosivas is your slot receiver. Beyond that, you have Charlie Jones and Jermaine Burton and Trenton Irwin. Like, there's no depth behind T. Higgins and Jamar Chase anymore. I do like the Mike Gesicki addition a little bit at tight end. they've always had offensive line issues. Defensively, I don't know, man.
They have the
view
worst
Cincinnati
defense in the
in the
division,
division?
like
Do you think
easily.
Cincinnati is still are they only at Super Bowl contending level because of Joe Burrow? Like,
Yeah,
and my
and
point is
the
that even
wide
enough?
receiver tandem.
Well,
Yeah,
my
like
point is, like, do you think that's even enough anymore? When you look
nah.
across the AFC, across the league, do you think they're good enough?
I'll be honest, man. I'll be honest with you. I think this season is going to tell a lot about their future. The Joe Burrow thing, man, the elbow injury, the wrist, that like
Yeah.
whatever that was, right? Like, I'm not going to get too technical because I can't. He had an elbow to wrist type of injury that was affecting his throwing hand to the point where he could not like grip
Yeah.
the ball. So like that worries me. Like any type of like muscle or nervous type
Tendon
of
type of
issue,
thing.
nervous system issue where you can't grip that. It worries me going forward if he gets hit the wrong way
Right.
just
And he's
once.
had the lower body injuries as well. Like, he's had
Yeah,
the
he's
knee
had the
injury.
ACLs. So there's a lot of concern there. You do have the money situation. And you do just have like the lack of talent. Like their offensive line has never been good.
No.
They've had a decent running back there in Joe Mixon for the last couple of years that's been able to produce even with the offensive line not being that good.
Yep.
Zach Moss, he's like, an above average running back, I guess you could say, where you would say Mixon's a good.
Like, I use Zach Moss as an RB2. That's how I use
that. I feel he's not nearly as versatile as Joe Mixon either, by the way. Like Joe Mixon was a great pass blocker. He can catch passes out of the backfield. So you lose a little bit there. The defense over the years have just continued to lose a piece here, a piece there, to the point now where they do, in my opinion, host the worst defense in the division. Excuse me. I have them finishing third in this division, man. And I hate to say it, like, how high I was on Joe Burrow and this high flying offense and everything that was going on in Cincinnati.
Yeah, they were like
about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I know they're like in Ohio. Like, I know they're not far off, right? They're like connected to Pennsylvania, but like when you talk like NBA, like they're that team like out west since they're in the AFC conference. They're like that other side of things that like you kind of look for a little bit. Like and now they're lacking all of it, I feel like.
So that could do two things, right? That could either put the chip on their shoulders so bad that they're, like we've seen in the past with the Eagles, the underdog mentality, right? Yeah. Where they're going to come out with this chip on their shoulder to prove something. Or it could go the complete opposite way where the team starts to lose hope in what is happening there, right? That core.
And I don't think, Scotty, in this division specifically, you can afford to be that weak of a defense.
Right.
Like in this physical, tough, gritty division, matchup, 6 of them, you play those teams combined 6 times. You play at Arrowhead in week 2. You have the Eagles coming to town in late October. You go to Dallas in December. I don't know the try so I mean that's 6 there's 9 or 10 games on their schedule where it's like
they could lose those matchups. And I don't know. I guess when I look at it, I'm just like, man, if they go and they play the Cleveland Browns, whether in Cincinnati or Cleveland, who's more built to play in that cold weather? Like once it gets cold out, if it's warm out, if it's in the fall, like September, October, go ahead. Like those offenses, I don't know. The Browns defense is really good though. Like that's the difference, right? Where the Browns might get that extra stop that the Bengals just can't get. But especially when you get into the thick of the season, where we've seen it in the past where they weren't able to control the game with their run game. And you kind of need that in your arsenal when it comes to playoff time, man. You need to be able to run the football. You need to be able to protect your quarterback.
I know the game's changing. I know everything's high flying and the big plays, and they want to air it out 40 times a game. But what's always been at least somewhat a part of the recipe?
Yeah, running the football, man.
And play defense, or stop the run
and protecting the ball, right?
Play tough on defense, and
that all plays into it.
In this division, you're the worst at both. So we'll see, man. Going through this, going over their defense and stuff, like you said, you have them coming in third. I'm going to assume you have the Steelers still behind them, which I think is that's probably what I would have as well. But if one of those two quarterbacks, or if Russ can be a game manager for them, I'm not so sure they're going to win more games than the Pittsburgh Steelers this year with that defense, with the ability to run the ball.
Didn't they beat the Bengals last year? They beat the Bengals last year at least once with Kenny Pickett at quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, or the backup to Kenny Pickett, because I know he missed some games last year.
Yeah.
So if they could beat you with that guy at quarterback, I think Russ could like game manage them to a win, man, and maybe even put up some points.
And then you have the Browns. And to go back to our question from the NFC North, which team has the best chance of reaching whatever their goal is, whatever their ceiling is? I do think it is the Cleveland Browns, because I don't think the Cleveland Browns, within the organization, they view themselves a certain way. But I think the word around Cleveland is, hey, let's make the playoffs, right? Let's try to win a playoff game. And I think if Deshaun Watson,
compete for the division,
Deshaun Watson is borderline the biggest X factor across the National Football League this year. If Deshaun Watson is a top half of the league type of quarterback this year, they are competing for the AFC North, and they will make one of those. They will, at minimum, make one of those 3 wild card spots, and be a very difficult task come playoff time. Because Nick Chubb is going to come back, and even without Nick Chubb, they still find a way to run the ball well. And you add him, who pound for pound, if healthy, is one of the best, if not the best, running back.
I mean, Jerome Ford had some good games last year to like push them towards the postseason last year to finish
they can run the rock. We know what they can do on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
You have a guy in Amari Cooper who's literally one of the most underrated players and receivers in the game. You go out, obviously had issues in Denver, has never had a competent quarterback. Jerry Jeudy, like, man, if Deshaun, again, is a top 15 type of quarterback, Jerry Judy's going to help this offense tremendously. David Njoku is one of the best pass catching and route running tight ends we have in the game.
Yeah, he's explosive.
Who's kind of undervalued as well. Then you have a guy in Elijah Moore, who's now your slot receiver. They are a very, very good team, man. Especially, and it's led by that defense. If their quarterback, who again might be the biggest if in the league this year, if he can be anything of average to above average, they are a playoff contender.
And sometimes, man, like you mentioned the Nick Chubb factor, like they're going to start this season without him, probably the first 4 weeks, right? If he's on the PUP list. So what that's going to do, it's going to allow Deshaun Watson to have more command in the offense. They'll be able to figure things out early. And then by the time Nick Chubb comes back, it'll just be like an addition. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're going to have to figure out life without Nick Chubb, that it's going to be so much relief when Nick Chubb returns to the offense, because we know the type of impact that he can have on an offense. You're letting Jerome Ford, who is that versatile, kind of like a third down caliber back, that you get to build his confidence right now. Then he gets shifted back to a more minimal role where he can still be impactful in those minimal snaps. It could turn into something even better by not having Nick Chubb there early on in the season as well, man. But it's really the defense that's honing in on me right now. And it brings me to the point, like, I can't decide which one of these defenses I think is the best, because I know the Ravens lost Patrick Queen. They went out and added Eddie Jackson, kind of secured their secondary up a little bit more. They still have guys up front. With Michael Pierce, you have Roquan Smith in the middle, man. They still are talented. The Steelers, ultra talented. They added Patrick Queen, to your point. Minkah Fitzpatrick, I don't think he was healthy a lot of last season, so you get him back fully healthy. TJ Watt, obviously. And then you go to the Browns, man, and they have Zadarius Smith across from Myles Garrett. And then you get into the secondary, you have your premium corner with Denzel Ward. I mean, across the board, these guys are hitting. I mean, at all 3 levels of the defense.
Linebackers are gross too. Like, you have Dalvin Tomlinson and Shelby Harris in between. You have JOK, Devin Bush, Jordan Hicks. Like, as you like,
added Jordan Hicks and Devin Bush. Yeah,
they're gross, dude. On like, I don't. To your point, like, take the offenses out of it right now. Which defense is the best minus Cincinnati? I don't know. On paper, like, I think. I think the Ravens are the 3rd best on paper. But the Ravens had the ability to be a top 3 unit in the league every week. So I don't know. I think the Browns had the best defense on paper. And then I would probably go Steelers after that, and then I would go Ravens.
Yeah, because the Ravens, it's tough because their front four, right? Outside of Michael Pierce, I'm not super familiar with their front four and who they're going to throw out there.
is kind of a monster.
Matabuke, yeah, he came on last year. You get to
the
linebackers. The linebackers are solid. You got Kyle Van Noy. He'll probably play on the edge more. And then the secondary, you got Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, Kyle Hamilton, Eddie Jackson, Marcus Williams. So, yeah, I feel you, man. There was a point where I was leaning towards Baltimore, but the more I read into it, it does feel like
just on paper, like on a week-to-week basis, they could be the best
go Browns
in the league or on the
but there is a culture that comes with Baltimore that hones in around defense. They just bring a mentality of just like punch you in the mouth.
Let me ask you a question
so it
on
does make
Baltimore.
it tough.
What does that Derrick Henry addition do for you? Like, how much of a needle mover is that for you?
At first, it wasn't very much of a needle mover for me. And I think there's two roads this can go down because you're needing Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry to stay fully healthy throughout the season in order to have a top level offense, right? Because those receivers, as you mentioned, are nothing to get excited about. Let's just start there. They have the one guy. Why is his name slipping my mind? Zay Flowers. He's a great and
Mark Andrews,
wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3-ish, wide receiver 2.
Max, Zay Flowers is not a wide receiver.
Yeah, no, not by any means. You have Mark Andrews. You hope he stays healthy. They have Isaiah Likely, the backup tight end. He's very talented receiving the ball. But ultimately, you're relying on Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, who are going to get a ton of work to stay healthy all season. If they can. Super Bowl contenders. I do believe that. I do believe it. I think when you add Derrick Henry to what the Baltimore Ravens were doing last year, if they had Derrick Henry against the Chiefs, I don't know how you stop that running game, quite honestly, without like totally selling out your pass defense, letting guys live on islands all game. I don't know exactly how you stop that run game. If Lamar Jackson is making the right decisions, when to hand off to Derrick Henry and when not to. It is interesting. I think they do have the ceiling of a Super Bowl, obviously a Super Bowl contender, but it does sound deadly. And as we approach the season, I am getting a little bit more keen on that duo coming out of the backfield. But I wasn't high on it at first for some reason.
When I think of the Ravens, man, this year, coming off that heartbreaking loss in the AFC Championship, I view them, and I know we're not talking about the AFC East right now, but I view them in the same light I view the Buffalo Bills core.
Yeah.
And we know there's been a lot of, overhaul with the Bills and specifically on the offensive side. And I don't know what they're going to be this year. I don't think the Bills right now on paper are Super Bowl contenders. And I look at, like, in fairness to them, you only get so many cracks at the King. And I feel like the Ravens, and Lamar, 2 MVPs last year, hosting the number 1 seed in the championship. I know that's only 1 year for them before they didn't get to play Patrick, but you only get so many cracks when the King's on your side of the table on that conference. And for me, it's almost like, well, now I'm waiting for that next core, that next team to get its shot at Kansas City, excuse me, because. Like Buffalo, you had Buffalo have all those attempts. You had 3-4 years of Josh Allen and company trying, man, whether it's against Kansas City or not, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't even get to the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing them kind of overhaul things a little bit. I look at the Ravens, and Lamar's won MVPs, and they were the 1 seed last year, and they had a lead in the second half. And it's like, when? If not then, when? And on paper, you did add Derrick Henry. Your wide receivers stink, man. Stink. And we already know Lamar has his issues throwing the ball in the biggest moments. Now, to Lamar's credit, wasn't really his fault in that playoff game, if my memory serves me correct. But I don't know. I don't foresee it coming down to the Ravens getting in the Chiefs' way this year. I think there's another team, whether it comes from the Ravens division, whether it is a young Houston Texans team, whether
Yeah.
it's a Jets team, a Miami, whoever it is, I do not think it is the Baltimore Ravens getting in the way of Mahomes from getting back again.
I just think and I don't disagree with any of the deficiencies that you've listed there. The only thing I'll say is that they've gotten to the AFC Championship, gotten to the number 1 seed. They've done all of those things with those deficiencies, right? But now you add Derrick Henry, and it's not to say that those deficiencies go away per se. It's just that I guess they can get to the same spot in my eyes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I guess if they're getting to the AFC Championship game, they are like a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I do feel you. I feel they can get knocked off the cliff. I think, to be clear, I think the Browns are right there. Like, I think about a Browns-Ravens matchup. I don't know. I think the Ravens have a good recipe to beat the Browns, but I think the Browns have the exact same thing to beat the Ravens. It's just going to be two physical-ass teams squaring off. But yeah, it's like it's going to come down to like, can Deshaun Watson, who's going to outplay one another, like Lamar Jackson with those bums at wide receiver, or
think about like we're talking like forget like even the Mahomes and Chiefs aspect of it, and you know being the leader out there every year. It's your own division. Like last year, like yes, you got the number 1
beat
seed,
each other
whatever, but there was no Joe Burrow towards the end of the year.
Yeah,
there's no Deshaun Watson, there's no Nick Chubb, and we know what Pittsburgh's situation looked like. Like there was really no threat at the end of the year to the Ravens. Those games against Jake Browning and the backup in Cleveland, whoever it was at the time, like those Joe Flacco, I think it was at the end of the year.
Yeah,
right?
it was
like
Joe Flacco.
Those became like, okay, now we can look at these and think these are wins. You're going to be in a dogfight 6 times minimum this year. Yeah. So that plays a factor as well, man. If you had to give me a ranking, I know you said you would put the Steelers 4th, Bengals 3rd. Who do you have winning this division?
I do have the Ravens winning the division. I have the Browns coming in 2nd. I think they both make the playoffs. I would have to look at the rest of the divisions. I think there's maybe one other division out there that could have 3.
Agree with your rankings.
But I think they could have 3.
I do agree with your rankings. I wish I could see into the future of 2 or 3 weeks of Deshaun Watson. Like I wish I could see, because that changes everything.
That close.
It changes everything if he is a good quarterback this year compared to what he's been since he's returned to the league. And he's, like I said, the biggest X factor in the National Football League this year. With that said, to wrap up season 3, episode 1 of Turf Talk here, man. Let's release our first look at our top 10 positional rankings heading into the 2024 season. I promise I'll get better graphics for you guys next show. We're in a bind. Let me take this down so you guys can see the full screen. What we're going to do, here are your top 10 quarterbacks. I'm on the left, Scotty's on the right. And every week every show, when we get to 2 new divisions, if there are any players within those teams, within those divisions, we will remove the squares, remove the blocks, and finish out our top 10 rankings as we head into the season a week from today. But as you can see, Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow both coming in on our list here. Just flip-flop. Scotty has Lamar 2, Burrow 3rd, or Burrow 4th. I have Joe Burrow 2nd, Lamar 4th, and then Scotty showing some love for Jordan Love down at number 10. I was going to, man, and to be fair, I don't have Jared Goff up there either. I don't have Jordan Love. You can't put Caleb Williams up there yet. There's just too much unknown. We haven't seen yet, obviously, him play even in a regular season game in a Bears uniform. I get it. It might sound a little, there might be a little too much haterade coming Jordan Love's way from me. I just think when I looked at my number, even just 10, like I think 9 and 10, or maybe just even 10 when it comes to quarterbacks, there are like 4 guys outside the top 10 that I can all group right there, right? Like without giving away who's in my 10, you could argue for Jordan Love. You can argue for a Jared Goff. You can argue for a Dak Prescott. You can argue, like, there's a decent amount of quarterbacks that can come within that 10 spot. But yeah, Scotty's got 3 of his top 10 within the North divisions. I have just 2, and they both come out in the AFC, man. Lamar at 2. Let me ask you this. Would you, if you were building a team, if you were trying to win a Super Bowl this year and you were putting together the best squad you could, would you take Lamar Jackson over Joe Burrow to play quarterback for you?
The injury concern the injury concerns me with Joe Burrow. The injury history, I guess I should say, not just the one singular injury, but all of them put together. It's just with Lamar Jackson, you have to really cater the offense to him as far as like having the dual threat offense, right? From your quarterback. Like he is fully intertwined to a dual threat type of offense where he's going to have the option to run on basically every single play. So it's not exactly like that with Joe Burrow. You could probably put him in a lot more offenses and he could probably be successful in a lot of different versions of offenses. But I guess with the idea of that behind these rankings, why I have Lamar ahead of Joe Burrow, I think Lamar's situation is just a lot better. I think he fits perfectly in with what the Ravens do, which is why he's won 2 MVPs with that unit, even with the deficiencies at wide receiver. Like it just doesn't matter because he runs the ball so well. He's going to have Derrick Henry back there with him. I think his situation just got a lot better. And that's viewing them both as like MVP candidates, right? At that point. That being said, though, to answer your question, if I was going just specifically off of like starting a team, I'd probably start with Joe Burrow. Barring all health concerns.
I would start I get it. I think when it comes to these lists, you're taking the history and the background as well as trying to predict this year. So I can get going into this year. You might have Lamar Jackson up there ahead of Joe Burrow. But I just like, again, if you were to pick fully healthy, which one would you want to try to win a Super Bowl? I would go Joe Burrow 2. We have number 1 blocked off. I can only assume who each of our number 1 is going to be. But a lot of running backs here, man, in the North. And I don't think that should be any surprise. I mean, when you talk, what did we just talk about? Defense in the AFC North. Well, what's the counterpart? Can you run the ball 35 times a game almost? And then even in the NFC North with those 3 teams or so that are going to want to throw the football, they also have dynamic running backs and a former rushing champ over there now, man. So as you can see, we had the same 4. There's not another guy that made the list that the other one didn't have. You have Derrick Henry slotted at number 3 on your list. I have him at 5. I think when it comes to my Derrick Henry being a little bit lower for me, it's just 2 of the guys I have ahead are just pure upside, just pure projection, staying healthy, what their new offensive situation looks like, what their new quarterback situation looks like, and what I'm predicting that they can be this upcoming season. My 7, 8, 9 is Jahmyr Gibbs, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs. Your 7, 8, 9 is Nick Chubb, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs. Nick Chubb, I don't know if you would agree with me. If Nick Chubb wasn't starting the year on the PUP, if Nick Chubb did not have a very serious injury to that, was it the same leg in the year, and a couple years ago that he sustained with this compound fracture this time around, he'd be Nick Chubb would be top 2. I just don't know at this point, coming off that major injury, 5+ weeks into the season, just how, I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs is a better running back than Nick Chubb. I just don't know what Nick Chubb is, especially, a month plus into the season when he'll be back potentially.
That's fair.
So that's why he's a little bit lower for me there, man. But we both have Jacobs at 9. Let me ask you a question. Am I sleeping on Josh Jacobs at all? Like, I know when we talked about Green Bay, I was a little bit even more down on the addition. I know 2 years ago he's a rushing champ on a bad Raiders team. Do you think Josh Jacobs slots inside the top 10 because of Josh Jacobs? Or do you think Josh Jacobs slots inside the top 10 because when you get down to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, we're in a little bit of thin water when it comes to the running back position?
Yeah, it is an interesting question because, I'm looking at the rushing stats from last year. Obviously a down year for Josh Jacobs. He was beat up, all types of stuff going on. You look at his situation with Green Bay, they like to run the football. They like to get physical in the ground game. You look at Aaron Jones, who they had there. It's kind of like they've mixed Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon together to create this bruiser back in their backfield. So I do like his situation. I think he's going to get a ton of work with that Green Bay offense. To answer your question, though, I do think it is, because as you go down the list, and I think the hardest part with the running backs, right? It's I guess it's similar to quarterbacks in the sense of them being a dual threat, but running backs in the sense of being able to catch football,
Yeah.
be a threat downfield in the passing game. It's hard to gauge how much that matters, outside of guys like CMC who just are the best at both, right? So I don't know. There's like a guy below Jacobs where I'm like, man, is he better than Jacobs just because he is
Right.
more versatile? And same thing could be said with Jahmyr Gibbs and Nick Chubb. In this day and age, Jahmyr Gibbs might be the better running back. Like, even when healthy, just with his style. Now, I'm not saying Chubb, I'm not saying Chubb 2 years ago. I'm saying Chubb coming back, like you said, off the injury this year, week 5, comes back healthy. What's that still going to look like at his age with the injuries that he's had versus Jahmyr Gibbs, who can he's an excellent pass catcher. He can do
Are the Lions going to use him like they should this year?
That's fair. That's fair, though.
More of a fucking David Montgomery back. I mean, he's gone now, isn't he? Where is he still with Detroit, or is he?
Let me check, man. I feel like he has to be.
Let me see.
Yeah, he's still on the Lions.
Yeah, he is.
It doesn't feel like he is because everybody is super high on Jahmyr Gibbs this year. I think talent-wise, though, Jahmyr Gibbs, when he's given the opportunities, he's shown that he's a top back. And I can almost get with Jahmyr Gibbs over Nick Chubb. I guess I just didn't want to discredit Nick Chubb too much, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No,
because there still could be some of that guy in there. With Derrick Henry, that was like a situational thing for me as well. I'm just thinking of him opposite of Lamar Jackson compared to what he's dealt with in Tennessee the last couple of years. I mean, where he's able to just still rack up over 1,000 yards, over 10 touchdowns each year. But once again, versatility, man. How much does that matter when you start to think about some of the other backs that are going to be on this list? So
it's a good question, man.
3 of these guys that honestly, what I would say, 3 of these guys that we both have shown on here outside of Jahmyr Gibbs are very one-dimensional in a sense. So Nick Chubb
I agree.
Getting better in the passing game,
but in the only sense that a Derrick Henry or Nick Chubb or Josh Jacobs is catching the ball is just a little screen or dump off out of the backfield.
Right.
There's no design. There's no motion out of the backfield.
Going out to the slot.
Potential. So there's nothing with it. Whereas when you do look around the league, when you talk about a Christian McCaffrey, a Bijan Robinson, a Breece Hall, a Saquon Barkley, but even a Jahmyr Gibbs, when you look at those guys, there's design to get them the ball in other ways.
Exactly.
Really, there's not when it comes to those more physical, just put your foot in the ground prototype type of running backs. But receivers, we also have. Oh, I did not block off my number 10 by accident.
All good.
Which is making me think. Forgetting what I did wrong here. I'm forgetting if I'm supposed to have someone at number 10 or at number 9. And I meant it. Whatever. Here you go. Here's the AFC Nfc North. Take away Mike Evans. Don't mind that little blimp there. Both of us have Jettas at number 1. The issue with this, man, is if you're just going to look ahead to production for this year, it's going to be interesting if they can get him the ball and what opposing defenses do to him. Like, if I'm being honest, is Justin Jefferson in a situation where the Vikings are so bad, come the end of the year, some phantom injury comes up and Justin Jefferson doesn't play the last 3 weeks of the season because
makes a lot of money.
There's no point in sending him out there to get triple teamed and risk an injury at the end of the year with the position they're in. But pound for pound, if you put them on even playing field, if you gave them in the same quarterback, whatever, Justin Jefferson is the number 1 wide receiver.
Production.
I think it's gotten a little closer, but I think he's still number 1. You have Jamar at 4. I have him at 5. You have Amon-Ra at 7. I have him at 8. And then Mike Evans, like I said, is not supposed to be there. And you have DJ Moore sitting at number 10, man. Talk to me about the DJ Moore love right here.
Yeah, man. I think with Caleb Williams, we're really going to find out what DJ Moore is about. But looking at the stats, man, He put up some great numbers last year, even with a mix of like Justin Fields and some other guys mixed in there, whoever the hell they were starting other than him. There was I can't remember the kid's name. It was this dude on like a primetime game that they had to start. I can't remember his name, so I guess I shouldn't have brought it up. But that's what type of stuff they were doing last year. Unnameable quarterbacks.
Was it Tyson Badgett?
Yeah, it was. It was Tyson. He was from Shepherd, right?
I think so.
The Shepherd guy, yeah, because I partied at Shepherd a couple times back in my day. So I kind of resonated with him. But nonetheless, that's what they were dealing with back there. DJ Moore he was 6th in receiving yards last year with 1,364 yards, had 8 receiving touchdowns.
God damn.
I just think with Caleb Williams, man.
Yeah.
What does that look like? The argument there, Keenan Allen's added to this offense. Rome Odunze's added to this offense. There's going to be options. But I think DJ Moore at his age versus Keenan Allen, I kind of go back and forth, but I think DJ Moore is going to be the wide receiver 1 in that unit. And I think the numbers with the wide receiver 1 in that unit with Caleb Williams is going to come with top 10 numbers. So I really do. I like DJ Moore as a player. I think he is very versatile, can operate in all different parts of the field as a wide receiver, but just what we've seen him working with over his career to put up the numbers and to have the status that he has, which is probably anywhere from 10 to 15 in reality. You can argue about 5 different guys mixed in there. To get to that status with what he played with in Carolina, and then now Chicago, and then to now be with Caleb Williams, who's supposed to be a generational talent. I expect DJ Moore to kind of, I don't want to say take off because he kind of took off last year in Chicago, but maybe take off even further and kind of stabilize his name in this conversation.
Yeah, I agree, man. And then last up, hopefully I didn't screw anything up over here. No, we're all good. We are all good when it comes to the tight ends. Sam Laporta and Mark Andrews coming in at 3 and 4 for us.
Yes,
oh no, I did. I messed up. I still did.
What is it? Hawkinson?
TJ Hawkinson's at number 7 for me, but that's no big deal. I'll keep it blocked off for now. So both have TJ Hawkinson. I have Cole Kmet coming in at number 10. You have David Njoku coming in at number 10. Both, again, I think that's that fringe, right? I think when it comes to these tight ends, 9, 10, 11, 12, I think there's 4 or 5 guys, a handful that you can throw in there where any of them makes sense. I think both are going to be heavily dependent on those X factors, and that is quarterback. Like we talked about with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is an average to above average quarterback. David Njoku could have a hell of a year for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
If Caleb Williams is a generational type of talent, surrounded by all those threats on the outside, Cole Kmet could run wild over the middle for the Chicago Bears this year. So I think that's the difference for me there. Laporta at 3, man. He really did come in last year and take the league by storm. Is he almost is he in the perfect situation? Like, could you picture Sam Laporta in any other offense besides the Detroit Lions with Dan Campbell and what is it, Brian? Who's calling plays for them again? We talked about this the other day.
Is it Ben Thomas?
Ben Johnson.
Ben Johnson. I said Ben Thomas the last time too, bro.
Ben Johnson.
He's one of the most popular candidates for head coach coming up next year, just so you guys know.
Yeah.
Ben
You
Johnson.
have Jared Goff, the play action they run. Like, I can't picture Sam Laporta in another uniform in another offense. And I think it's the perfect scenario for him and the type of pass catcher that he is. And he came in and he's now a top 3 type of tight end. Now, do I think Mark Andrews can eclipse him if Mark Andrews comes back healthy this year? Yeah, I do. I think, there's a couple guys in that 5-6 range that could arguably be a top 3 tight end. But for right now, Sam Laporta 3. Like I said, TJ Hawkins is supposed to be on my list, but your boy was putting this together rather quickly. It looks awful. Don't worry, guys. When we continue on to the next show, I'll have a much better design, a much better put together graphic for you guys. But we did this minutes sparing to go before we record here. So this is what you guys get for today.
No, I think to your point about Laporta and
here.
Mark Andrews specifically. You can also look at him as they're at 2 crossroads in their career, and Laporta less of a crossroad. He's just at a different point in his career, right? But Laporta is going to get better than what he was last year, which was 800 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns, 86 receptions. Mark Andrews, is he going to be better than what he was like before? I don't think that that's going to happen. I think he still is going to be a top 5-ish type of tight end. Still gave him the respect at 4, but I think Laporta is like that guy that is on the uprise right now. He's going to be in his second year, even more intertwined in the offense. Going to be basically the third-ish option, maybe the second-ish option in the offense behind Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, in the running game specifically, but he's right there. There's no wide receiver 2 on that team that's going to like overtake his targets. So yeah, I think he's a guy that's on the uprise. Obviously, Kittle, and well, damn, I gave away my other 2. The guys ahead of him are gonna be hard to take their seat, but I think Laporta, and there's one other guy that's on the list. These 2 guys specifically, a little bit younger, that could potentially jump into that top 3-ish, top 2, maybe. Yeah. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Does he happen to play down in the desert in Arizona?
Yeah. That's the other guy. So I think Laporta and that guy, they could be in the conversation for top tight end in the upcoming years. Maybe when Kelsey retires. But it's coming, man. You can see it with those guys.
Interesting stuff as always, man. An hour and 16 minutes later, and we're officially wrapping up episode 1 of season 3 of NFL Turf Talk here on the DSM Media Turf Talk YouTube channel. Guys, if you are checking us out right now, do us a favor. We have 3 different DSM channels to separate and break up our content for you guys. We have the Philadelphia YouTube channel, which is obviously all things Philly sports. We have the Scotty Talks NBA YouTube channel, which is all things NBA, and the Turf Talk channel, which brings you all of your NFL content all year long. We are going to be live on Thursday nights before the Thursday night games, recapping Sundays and Mondays action, as well as getting into that Thursday night action. Hopefully it's better this year. I haven't even looked at the Thursday schedule on Prime yet.
Starts off better.
We'll be live with you guys Sunday mornings as well, around 10:30 a.m. to break down the full Sunday slates this year. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate each and every one of you. For myself, for Scotty, have a great rest of your Thursday, and we'll be back Monday releasing our next divisional breakdown and adding to our positional rankings. Peace.